Hello, everyone, and welcome to Film Family. And today we'll be reviewing X-Men: Dark Phoenix. So yeah, let's just get right into this. This movie, it's bad. We all agree. This movie. Now, I'm not gonna be angry to this review like I was during my Godzilla, because I didn't walk in this movie expecting anything. Godzilla had great trailers, it was a bad movie. This movie had bad trailers, even worse marketing, was an even worse movie. But there's not much to say about this movie besides the fact that it's bad on every level. It doesn't succeed on anything. It doesn't have any of the interesting social or political ideas that the previous X-Men movies have. It doesn't have a cool Quicksilver sequence like the previous two movies. It doesn't have good action like any of the X-Men movies. It doesn't have a good villain. It doesn't have a good protagonist. It doesn't have a good anything. The only thing I'd say about this movie that I actually liked was probably the score. It's because Hans Zimmer did it. But Hans Zimmer, you can do better movies, all right? We all know this. So, yeah, I'm going to let you guys talk about what things you didn't like.
I'm in the same boat. I didn't like Nightcrawler. I didn't like the main girl. I didn't like the Beast. I didn't like Mystique. I feel like her acting, Jennifer Lawrence, she's a much better actress, and I just wasn't feeling it from her in a lot of this.
Let's talk about the protagonists of the movie first, because none of them are likable. And honestly, this is the same problem I had with Godzilla, where if I don't care what happens to the protagonist, why even watch the movie? Because if they die and I don't feel anything...
Cyclops. I hate Cyclops too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even like X-Men Apocalypse, which I think was a relatively lackluster movie, was way better than this movie. And eventually we'll talk more about the X-Men movies on the channel, but I'd say we're all pretty big fans, at least the really good ones. But it seems like with the X-Men movies, there's always one really good one and then two kind of bad ones. Mm-hmm. And I think that consistency level, it's not good enough for me. And unfortunately, this movie just continues the trend of bad ones, because this movie, guys, I'm going to say it, it's worse than X-Men: The Last Stand. It's actually a worse Dark Phoenix movie than X-Men: The Last Stand. Objectively, as a Dark Phoenix movie, it might not be worse, but as an X-Men movie, it's absolutely worse. I mean, Charles Xavier in this movie, a character who I love so much, he's just like, you don't even like him. He suppressed Jean's memories for what reason? He says because it would make her unstable. Like, aren't you a teacher and a counselor to troubled youth? Isn't that your job, to help kids not be unstable? He's just not even likable. Beast turns bad all of a sudden. Well, not even bad, he's like, oh, I hate Charles. Yeah. Cyclops' movie does nothing. I mean, he's pretty useless. Nightcrawler has, none of them even have character development. The movie clearly doesn't even care enough to give them character development. And Quicksilver, who, was probably, the saving grace of Apocalypse. One of my favorite scenes in that movie was the Quicksilver scene. He didn't even get to be in this movie for a lot. His charisma didn't even get to shine through, and they wouldn't even give him a Quicksilver sequence. They gave a small glimpse of it, but instead they were like, oh, we're going to subvert your expectations. He actually is not going to get to use his powers, because subverting your expectations always works so well. This movie, it wasn't good. It was probably, for me, the worst X-Men movie.
Okay. What did you think, Taj?
I'm going to be a little easier on it. I'm not going to say it was good. I would still say save your money and watch it on cable or whatever.
Don't watch it.
But I went into the theater thinking that I was gonna hate it. Like I had heard disaster, this and that, and I wasn't, from all of us that watched it, I wasn't the only one that thought, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would have been. I agree with the character developments, of what you guys have said.
What character development?
No, that's what I meant. The lack of it. Like, there was none in it at all. Like, you didn't care about the character. You didn't root for the characters. There's no growth in any of the characters.
Even the bad guys, like, you never really understood what they were. I get what they were doing and why they were doing it, but there was no really. Even Thanos has a very similar backstory. Homeland was destroyed and all this other stuff, and now he's trying to balance everything. Well, but at least you see more of that, and you feel some type of connection.
Yeah, comparing these guys to Thanos, that's tough. But it's rough. Like Magneto in this movie, I love Michael Fassbender as Magneto. I think he did such a good job in the previous movies, and it's hard to kind of come in after Ian McKellen did such a great job. Magneto is one of the greatest comic book villains of all time. He's one of the best comic book movie villains. He's probably my favorite Marvel villain of all time. Wow. And really, they did him no justice. He's not even a bad guy. He's doing nothing wrong in this movie. He's like living his life. Like, literally leave him alone. Jean Grey comes in and says possibly the worst piece of dialogue I've ever heard. How can you teach me to stop killing people? And he's like, I used to have vengeance, but now I don't. That's not why you fought Magneto. You fought because you fought for equal rights, and because your mother died, you were angry. But it's not like you just killed people because you're evil. They took away all his character development. And also, it's not like he just stopped killing when and he's gonna teach her the breathing techniques. Like, who wrote this movie? And that was just such a bad scene for me.
I really like that scene though from Michael Fassbender when he was fighting her with the magnetic. I mean, I don't want to call it the Force, but you know what I mean.
His magnetic powers.
Yeah, he was fighting the magnetic powers. I felt just from he doesn't. And when you're filming that, you don't really have those powers, and there's not actually a helicopter. So I really could feel the emotion and the power of him. I just think it demonstrated his extreme acting ability.
Chris Evans did that too.
Yeah.
Civil War. But
So,
yeah, I mean, I think Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy did such a good job as Charles Xavier, and Eric Lenchert, after the great job from Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. They had nothing to work with in this movie. Charles Xavier, like, honestly was one of the bad guys in this movie, it felt like for me. And Magneto, I was like rooting for him. I was like, you literally didn't do anything wrong. Like, you're sitting in your home, you're helping mutants actually. It's not like he's planning a coup to the government. He's just living peacefully, and because, you know, his friend dies, you know, he goes for vengeance. And I was like, I understand that. Like, I didn't understand why Charles Xavier decided to take like an 8-year-old troubled girl and suppress her memories because he's afraid of her turning evil. Plus, they said that she got the Dark Phoenix powers in this movie, which, did you not forget that she literally has her Phoenix powers in Apocalypse? That made no sense. And I think the worst part of this movie were the space alien villains. They had no motive. They're trying to rebuild
They're
their
like
home.
a rip-off Groot, in my opinion.
I mean, I was not feeling it. And if you read the comics, they're kind of like the Hellfire Club, but honestly, they're just not good at all. They really were in this movie for no reason. And Jessica
Which is surprising
Chastain,
because the actress,
yeah,
the
Jessica
bad actress,
Chastain, she's a talented actress, and she had
Wasn't
nothing
feeling
to
it.
do.
Yeah.
She didn't do anything in this movie because the movie script just didn't allow it for anything. And I think that would lead from my biggest problem with this movie is that this movie it's the prime example of no matter how many good things you have in a movie, if your script doesn't work, neither does any of your movie. And you know, the script for this movie, it just doesn't work. And yeah.
What do you guys think about Sophie Turner?
I thought she did
Jean
like a
Grey?
actually pretty serviceable job. I think she was probably better than the previous one, but she was just evil, and I didn't feel like there was no nuance there. There was no deeper things. She was just like, oh, I'm gonna
she
turn
was
evil.
working with what she had. But,
Yeah,
you know,
she
if the
worked with what
script
she
wasn't right, then
So,
the
yeah,
script,
that's-
you know,
Well,
it's just the
I
biggest
think
problem.
that leads to another problem with this movie is that it doesn't even use the 90s well. The previous 3 X-Men movies from 60s, 70s, and 80s all did, you know, a pretty good
Use
job
the
of
time
using
period,
the time period from, you know, the political debates to how people dress and all that stuff. None of that was in this movie, and even they kind of did like this little Challenger reference. I mean, that I wasn't feeling that. I didn't think that was really appropriate, and I didn't think that also was used well in the movie. And you know, I just didn't like.
Well, this is just a serious question. The government is launching a spaceship into space. Something goes wrong. They call the X-Men. The X-Men's plane is not ready to travel in space. But apparently,
Yes, it is.
it is. And then it goes up into space faster than the government did it, and better than the government did it, and NASA, and then they save everybody.
Charles Xavier's got a lot
I
of money.
was very confused about a lot
Well,
of
what
this.
I was confused about is how they thought it was a good idea to make the X-Men and the government peaceful off screen. That was like the biggest debate about the previous X-Men movies. That's what makes X-Men a good and a kind of a unique team because they deal with civil rights, which is such an important issue in society. None of that was present here. They were just friends with the government because they saved them sometimes, and all the anti-mutant sentiment was just gone. So I was like, oh, so you guys aren't even going to try now because you don't really care. This movie really, for me, felt like Fox knew they had a deadline. They knew that Disney was going to buy them soon. So Fox was like, we kind of got some money left over for a budget for a movie. Let's write that script real quick. They
That's
wrote
the
it in
perfect
20
description.
days. They made this movie. They didn't even try on the CGI because the CGI in this movie is awful. And then they did it. And Jennifer Lawrence clearly doesn't want to be in this movie. Just look at the makeup they did on her. It wasn't even good makeup. And, she was not even used well. And she's a really good actress. And she was really good as Mystique in the previous movies. And, in the third act of this movie, it just kind of happens and just ends. And I will say this, that the movie, it goes by pretty quickly, which was pretty good. But besides that, it was just boring. It was uninteresting. It wasn't even paced that well. And honestly, for me, the only actual good scene in this movie was probably the first scene with her as a girl and him talking to her. It was actually a good scene. But besides that, nothing else in this movie worked for me.
So if I forced you to say one good thing about this movie,
It'd be the opening scene. I actually really did like the opening
Okay.
scene. It
What
felt very, him trying to kind of talk to her, and he gives her the pen, and he goes, "This is my gift to you. You can choose to stab somebody with it or write with it." And he's like, "That's how I feel about you." And that's, I'm paraphrasing there, but I thought that was a very, that seemed like Charles Xavier. He's a teacher. He's talking to children.
Yeah.
But then they're like, 180. He actually just wiped her mind because he's a villain. It's like, whoa, what? Like, that came out of nowhere. And the villain in this movie, there was nothing there except her just being evil. And she, kills herself, but she's still the Phoenix. And then the final scene of this movie, which was an homage to the first X-Men with the little, the chessboard match. And when he's quoting the line, he's like, what if somebody comes to your mansion? And he's like, I feel a great swell of pity for the man who tries to pick a fight with my mansion or whatever. I just didn't feel it because I was like, you guys didn't even have a friendship in this movie. This movie just moves too fast to have any character interactions, and it moves too slow to be interesting. So it's just a failure.
Yeah, I mean, you liked it, I think, more than anybody else did.
I was prepared for the worst. Like, and when I say the worst, I was prepared to basically fall asleep.
But as far as X-Men movie goes, and we're including Logan is obviously way better than a lot of the X-Men movies, in my opinion. But where would you rank this as far as? I don't think it's very high up. I would hope it's not high up.
No.
This is last.
Is there a worse X-Men movie in your opinion?
There probably is. I don't know what it is, but it's either the worst or the second worst. I'm very lenient when it comes to this superhero movies. Like even Wolverine Origin, like it didn't bother me as much as it bothered everyone else. But I didn't know about Deadpool at the time.
They needed Hugh Jackman in this movie. I think that would have been a lot better.
That might have been.
And I get he died in Logan, but honestly, it could have brought him back. Who cares about the logic anyway? Honestly, like they clearly don't care. There's so many plot holes with the whole time travel thing. So just put him in, have him have a cameo. That would have made this movie.
I have a genuine question
better.
though, because I don't know about the comics. Did they actually name the school the Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters after this whole Dark Phoenix episode?
No, because in the comics, like Dark Phoenix, like she's like evil, like you know. And full disclosure, I have read comics, but I've actually never read the Dark Phoenix. Yeah. But I do know that they never named it Jean Grey because why would you do that? She like murdered people, and it's not even like she kills. She's like, how do you help me stop killing people? She kills like Mystique. She kills no innocent people. She's not even a true villain, and then she's not like sympathetic enough to feel bad for her. So she's just kind of a character and who's there. She's barely even a character. She's kind of a plot device. And then the aliens are supposed to be like the real villain, and they're so uninteresting that I didn't even have time to care about them. And so yeah. And
I don't know who was coaching the Nightcrawler or Cyclops, but they told them not to close their mouth the entire movie. It was hanging open like this the whole time, and it bothered me so much. Yeah,
well, if you want to, I actually rewatched some X-Men movies recently just because I wanted to watch some good X-Men movies, and I was watching them, and I was just like, man, like these X-Men movies at their best really did. They kept to the comics well, and they did a really good job with the material. And Dark Phoenix is one of the most celebrated Marvel comics of all time and storylines. It's butchered. It's been butchered twice now. And it's pretty bad when you
by
butcher
the same person,
twice.
Unfortunately, because he wrote
studio.
No, well, he wrote the first one.
Oh, really?
And then he wrote and directed this one. Yeah,
you looked that up.
Yeah, he
That's
wrote
bad. I didn't know that. Guys.
Yeah, so he wrote the first one. This was his second try at it, but with directing it.
That'd be funny if in 30 years he just did a third Dark Phoenix.
Yeah,
because I haven't read Dark Phoenix. It's on my list, but as one of the most celebrated comics, you need to be adapted correctly, and they've adapted so many comics well, with both DC and Marvel nowadays, and this movie's just such a bad adaptation, and it doesn't work as a movie on its own. And I did like the little Dazzler in this movie. If you guys don't know who Dazzler is, she's the mutant who has like the power to make people like sing and dance and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. She has a little cameo in this movie. It's very tiny.
Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, but also this movie didn't even explore the school element. Well, this movie didn't explore anything well.
So what's your real quick? I know this could be for another episode too, but just really quick, what's your favorite X-Men?
Yeah, this is another episode, but it'd probably be Logan. But X-Men, it'd be Days of Future Past.
I really liked Apocalypse. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. Just because I like the whole Egypt thing and the gods.
Interesting. It's not better than Days of Future Past.
Huh?
It's not better than Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past.
Or
X2 or First Class.
Yeah. But I haven't seen them recently.
Yeah, you should rewatch them. But this movie, we can all agree.
No,
this is at the bottom.
I woke up the next day offended. I woke up like,
yeah, you guys were pretty upset.
See that movie.
You guys were pretty upset.
Guys, you know how much I hated Godzilla, and I'd say
don't do
Godzilla's this movie's not worse than Godzilla. Okay. It's about one notch above, only because of Michael
Justice
Fassbender.
League? I think
this movie is
very close.
That is hard. That's for another day.
Wow.
That's for another day.
Yeah.
They need to hear our opinions on Justice League. But yeah, don't see this movie whatever you do. Clearly nobody is because it's making no money.
Yeah, it's not. It's underperforming.
So yeah,
we just need. I think
ratings. I give it a 3 out of 10.
I wouldn't be that rough. I mean, I don't want to be too mean about it. Like honestly, I wouldn't watch it again, so I would have to give it like a 4 or 5. I'm definitely not. I wouldn't see it again.
I'd give it a 5. Yeah, it is what it is.
Maybe next time, guys.
Unfortunately,
around there. Who knows?
It sucks that that's how they went out.
Yeah.
Now
they really should have ended with Logan. What a great movie!
What an incredible movie. Yeah, go watch Logan instead.
I was just going to say the thought just crossed my mind. We were talking about Robert Downey Jr. like fitting the perfect role
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Captain or for Iron Man. And I feel that Hugh Jackman was also a perfect cast
Yeah.
for Wolverine. Like, you know, that was
Nobody's
just,
perfectly cast in this movie.
yeah, no, but
Well, and
I think the most frustrating thing
I really
is
like Michael Fassbender.
it's frustrating to watch this movie with Michael Fassbender because he's just so good and so good as Magneto and just wasted. So yeah, overall, not a great movie. Don't see it. And yeah,
Thank you guys for tuning in again. This has been another episode of Film Family. If you like this, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that like button.
adios.
Boom.